Here we have the legendary chapter of the Book of Numbers involving the red heifer. Well, maybe it doesn't come up quite that often, but we'll see what this is about anyway. Numbers 19:1, and the Lord said to Moses and Aaron. 19:2, this is the ritual of the law which the Lord has commanded. Tell the Israelites to bring you a red heifer without spot, in which is no blemish, upon which a yoke has never come. So here we have a description of the animal that is to be offered to the Lord. We see that it is a heifer, so it is a female bovine, so a female cow. That it is to be without blemish, we've seen that before, that God doesn't like blemishes in his offerings, and it would be grounds to reject that offering. We see that its color. Now this is referring to it being a solid color, that it's not spotted or anything, that it is a solid color, a solid red. Now that red, that may be closer to a brown than, say, a blood red, but it's hard to make the distinction on the exact color of it. There is different symbology and stuff with the different colors, and they do have meanings that way. Red, of course, is a color of atonement and salvation, because it is also the color of blood and the blood sacrifice. So maybe there's something to it that way. Numbers 19:3, and you shall give her to Eleazar the priest, and he shall bring her outside the camp, and she shall be slaughtered before him. This is very different than what we have seen previously. Typically, all these sacrifices and all these offerings are done in the premises of the tabernacle, and the altar of burnt sacrifice is used, and the priests are involved. They do what it is that they do, and the offerings occur. This one is different. It is happening outside of the tabernacle. It's happening outside of the camp. We have Eleazar, one of the sons of Aaron. He is the one looking after this task. So there's something special about that as well. So there's definitely some degree of importance to this, but not enough to separate the high priest from the tabernacle. So it has been delegated to his son to perform this type of offering or sacrifice. So we have Eleazar the priest going outside the camp with this animal and having it slain before his eyes. Numbers 19:4, Eleazar the priest shall take some of her blood with his fingers and sprinkle it towards the front of the tent of meeting 7 times. So here we have Eleazar the priest taking some of the blood of this animal and sprinkling it towards the tabernacle. A lot of things going on here. So blood is the symbol of life. Life is in the blood, so therefore blood is the symbol of life. And he is sprinkling it 7 times. 7 is the number of completion and the number of perfection. So he is completing something here with the lifeblood of this animal. There is an event similar to this that we've looked at before called the Day of Atonement, and that involves the high priest sprinkling blood within the tabernacle to consecrate it for another year. Just based on that comparison, we do have a general idea of what this may be about, and we're going to see some more details here in a bit. Numbers 19:5, the heifer shall be burned in his sight, her skin, flesh, blood, and dung. So here we see the total destruction of this animal, that it is to be burned in this location and totally consumed by the flame, that no part is removed from it. So this does have some similarities with what we've seen previously in the burnt offering, but again, this is different. So what's going on here? At least the burnt offering to me sounds like the closest variation. In the normal burnt offering, the priest would receive the skin of the animal. Numbers 19:6, and the priest shall take cedar wood and hyssop and scarlet stuff and cast them into the midst of the burning heifer So we have some things that are being added to this fire while it burns. One is the cedar wood. Cedar wood is quite interesting. It is a very rot-resistant wood. It isn't affected by moisture and fungal infections like other woods, so it's very resilient. And I believe in the Bible it's used symbolically of strength, durability, and righteousness. Hyssop is a lovely flower, and it is symbolic of the purification and the ritual cleansing. Then we have the scarlet stuff, this reddish color, which is a symbol of atonement, salvation, and the blood sacrifice. And later on, it is symbolic of the love of God and the blood of Jesus. Numbers 19:7. Then the priest shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. Afterward he shall come into the camp, but he shall be unclean until evening. So now we see why Aaron the high priest is not the one performing this offering, because this offering makes the priest unclean. So he has to wash and get cleaned up afterwards, and he is ceremonially unclean for the rest of the day. Numbers 19:8. He who burns the heifer shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and shall be unclean until evening. In this particular instance, we see Eleazar the priest conducting this offering, but down the road there might be a different priest performing this. Either way, the priest is not the one lighting this animal on fire. He has assistants that are doing that. So the person that burns this animal or lights the fire, builds the fire up, places the animal on it, whatever it is that they do, they are also ceremonially unclean, and they need to wash up afterwards. Numbers 19:9. And a man who is clean shall collect the ashes of the heifer and put them outside the camp in a clean place, and they shall be kept for the congregation of the Israelites. For the water for impurity, it is a sin offering. So the animal is fully consumed by the flame, and we have another man, someone who is ceremonially clean, to go and to collect these ashes. Maybe he separated some of it. Maybe there was some chunks of things that shouldn't be there, and maybe he would separate that out and try to keep as much of the animal ashes as he could. And he would take those and he would place them in a clean location outside of the camp. So these ashes were not stored in the camp, they were stored on the outskirts of the camp. And these ashes are going to be used down the road. We see that these ashes are going to be used for this water of impurity, some sort of water treatment there. And this type of offering is going to be classified under the sin offering umbrella. Numbers 19:10. And he who gathers the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. This shall be to the Israelites and to the stranger who sojourns among them a perpetual statute. So here we have another person that is going to be made ceremonially unclean. They're going to have to wash up, clean up, and wait till evening to be clean again. Numbers 19:11. He who touches the dead body of any person shall be unclean for 7 days. 19:12. He shall purify himself with the water for impurity, made with the ashes of the burnt heifer. On the 3rd day and on the 7th day he shall be clean. But if he does not purify himself the 3rd day, then the 7th day he shall not be clean. So now we see the purpose of all this, that this water is to be used in the cleansing process. And here we have an example, somebody touching a dead body, they're to be unclean for 7 days, but they have to do a cleansing process to be clean within that 7 days. And part of this cleansing process involves the ashes that were produced here during this fire that consumed this red heifer. Numbers 19:13. Whoever touches the corpse of any who has died and does not purify himself defiles the tabernacle of the Lord, and that person shall be cut off from Israel, because the water for impurity was not sprinkled upon them. He shall be unclean. His uncleanness is still upon him. So now we see exactly how this is to be used. That the ashes are mixed with water and they are sprinkled upon the person for part of this ceremonial cleaning process. And if they don't get ceremonially clean, they're going to be exiled from the group. They're going to be cut off. So a very severe punishment for those that decided not to get themselves cleaned up after being exposed to a corpse. Numbers 19:14. This is the law when a man dies in a tent. All who come into the tent and all who are in the tent shall be unclean for 7 days. So here we are getting into the proximity of the uncleanness. Of course, the Israelites are dwelling in tents in these days, for they are in the wilderness wandering process. Now these tents, they might be big, they might be small. It's hard to say how many people go inside a tent. It would vary a lot, but if you're in a tent and somebody coincidentally dies in it, this is the procedure here of who is declared clean and who is made unclean by this event. And it's quite simple. If you're in the tent, you're unclean. Simple as that. Numbers 19:15. And every open vessel which has no covering fastened upon it is unclean. This here makes a lot of sense when it comes to open vessels that are in the proximity of somebody that just died. I mean, it doesn't really say what they died of, but you're better to be safe than sorry. Maybe they got sick with something and then just dropped dead. So the bacteria and whatnot could spread into those vessels and someone else can be interacting with them and then they could get sick, or maybe it was something in that vessel that caused this guy to die in the first place. So by getting rid of that crap, it would prevent other people from passing as well. So there's certainly a degree of safety here by throwing out or declaring these open vessels as unclean. Numbers 19:16. And whoever in the open field touches one who is slain with a sword, or a dead body, or a bone of a dead man, or a grave, shall be unclean for 7 days. When we were looking at the law of the tent, the man who dies in the tent, it was a proximity. If you're within the tent or in the premises, that you would be considered unclean. But here we have a different example involving physical contact, and that physical contact with somebody that is dead is what causes the uncleanness. So there is a more direct proximity there. It doesn't have to be intentional at all. This could be accidental. Running through a forest or something, stumbling into a dead body or a skeleton. There you go, ceremonially unclean. And it's time to bring out the water of purification and to wash up, get cleaned up, and then rejoin the group. A lot of stuff can happen pretty quickly. Numbers 19:17. And for the unclean they shall take of the ashes of the burning of the sin offering, and the running water shall be put with it in a vessel. 19:18. And a clean person shall take hyssop and dip it in the water and sprinkle it upon the tent and upon all the vessels and upon the persons who were there and upon him who touches the bone or the slain or the naturally dead or the grave. 19:19. And the clean person shall sprinkle the water for purification upon the unclean person on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. And on the 7th day The unclean man shall purify himself, and wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and shall be clean at evening. So here we see the procedure of this cleansing process, that there is a clean person that takes these items and uses them, uses the ash, uses the water, and the hyssop to cleanse these people so that they are able to become clean again. I think it's interesting here that we have it just being a clean person. This doesn't need to be the priest. The priest did his portion when it came to the creation of these ashes, and we see that these are available so that the people are to be cleansed. It's a pretty interesting system, really. Numbers 19:20. But the man who is unclean and does not purify himself, that person shall be cut off from among the congregation, because he has defiled the sanctuary of the Lord. The water for purification has not been sprinkled upon him. He is unclean. God is a holy being, and death is not something that is holy. Man, through his sin, brought death into the world. It is not something that is supposed to be here, so it is not something that God particularly likes. This is why there is such a grave level of uncleanness caused by death, because it represents that sin of man, that falling. And here we have the idea that if a person doesn't get themselves cleaned up, that they will be separated from the congregation as well, not just the Lord. For the people of Israel are to be holy and consecrated unto the Lord, so there's no place for those that are wrapped in death. Numbers 19:21. And it shall be a perpetual statute to them, he who sprinkles the water for impurity upon another shall wash his clothes, and he who touches the water for impurity shall be unclean until evening. 19:22. And whatever the unclean person touches shall be unclean, and anyone who touches it shall be unclean until evening. So here we have a system that allows the people the opportunity to be cleansed. And it seems relatively straightforward, and I'm sure it is quite beneficial for the Israelites to have an option to get cleansed without having to go to the tabernacle for all these things that might be a little bit on the smaller side, so that the priests are not overwhelmed having to look after large amounts of uncleanness just because someone stumbled upon a dead body.